My name is Nur Shafika binti Mazlak. My metric number is 2025165633.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Shazza Afsar binti Mak Jamil. My metric number is 2025159361.
Hi, my name is Nur Aimati Mazlan and my matrix number is 2025381033.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day. My name is Nur Amira binti Roswani. My metric number is 2025100157.
Hi, my name is Muhammad Azhar Eman and my matrix number is 2025370513.
Okay, today I would like to present about the introduction of the Asian financial crisis of 1997. The crisis is began in July 1997 in Thailand when the Thailand government was forced to float its currency, the baht, after the draining its foreign reserve in efforts to fight the spectacular attack. The single event triggered a widely spread financial collapse that could be spread to another country in East and also the South of Asia. This including the Indonesian, South Korean, Malaysian, and also the Philippines. The economy soon faced a sharp currency devaluation, stock market crash, and also the sharp drop in economic growth. But beyond the immediate financial damage, the crisis also imposed serious structural issues like weak financial system, poor governance, and also fragile regulatory frameworks. The crisis was a wake-up call. It revealed how interconnected the world's financial system had become and how easy investor confidence and collapse, leading to massive capital outflows. In the response, many governments, companies, and also the global institutions like IMF and also World Bank had rethink their strategy, improve their financial management, and take a step to prevent the crisis.
So I'm going to start with our background history. Before the Asian financial crisis started, in the late 1980s and the early 1990s, Asian countries received a great amount of foreign direct investment due to the high economic growth. Apart from that, factors that contributed to this growth are that these countries have relatively stable politics, low labor costs, and open policies, which make them the perfect place to invest. However, one crucial concept that was overlooked by most involved parties such as the governments, the bank system, and the firms, both locals and international, is that the larger the economic growth, the larger the risk that the countries must tackle. During this time, the bank system was developed with slow progress and obvious lacking in the risk management ability. In 1997, the Thai government took a big risk by abandoning the fixed exchange rate system, which caused a rapid decline in its currency value. In addition, Thailand's US dollar reserves were already insufficient to protect the currency. From the year 1990 until 1996, the exchange rate of 1 Thai baht to 1 US dollar ranged from 25.7477 until 25.2981. By the end of the year 1997, the exchange rate increased drastically to 44.3091 to 52.9825 in 1998 and lastly 36.6216 in 1999. The collapse of Thai baht currency spreads out to other Asian countries that marked the start of Asian financial crisis.
Now, let's move on to the causes of the crisis. The Asian financial crisis of 1997 started in Thailand and quickly spread across East and Southeast Asia. It was mainly caused by a burst financial bubble due to a large amount of short-term foreign investment, also known as hot money. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, countries like Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and South Korea experienced rapid economic growth, often called the Asian economic miracle. However, this growth hit deeper problems. Many countries had borrowed too much money from abroad and lacked strong financial regulation. Speculative investment, weak banking system, and poor government oversight created risky financial environments. As a result, these economies become vulnerable to sudden changes in investor confidence. The crisis began in July 1997 when the Thai baht collapsed. Investors lost trust and started pulling their money out. This caused sharp falls in currency values, stock markets, and property prices in several countries. The situation worsened when the US raised interest rates, making the dollar stronger. Since many Asian currencies were tied to the US dollar, this made their export more expensive and less competitive. Fixed exchange rates limit the ability of central banks to respond effectively. At the same time, domestic issues like high trade deficits, rising asset prices, and poor quality bank loans increased the risk. Weak financial transparency made it hard to see the true state of these economies. On the global side, investors had underestimated the risk in their search for high returns, especially during a time of low interest rates in Europe and Japan. When the US dollar rose, countries pegged to its lost competitiveness, especially against Japan's yen, which hurt their export even more. In the end, a mix of internal weaknesses and global pressures caused the crisis to spread, damaging the economies of many Asian countries and shaking global financial markets.
Now let's move on to the effects of the Asian financial crisis. Let's start with the economic impact first. The Asian financial crisis began in Thailand in July 1997 when the Thai government couldn't defend its currency anymore. The baht was floated and it lost over 50% of its value. This created panic and soon the crisis spread to Indonesia and South Korea. In Indonesia, the rupiah dropped by over 80% and the South Korean won fell by around 50%. As a result, governments and businesses struggled to pay off their debts, especially those in US dollars. Economies went into recession. Indonesia's GDP dropped by 13.1%, while Thailand and South Korea experienced contractions of more than 7%. Many companies went bankrupt and banks were overwhelmed with bad loans. Second, moving on to the social impact. The crisis caused massive job losses and forced many factories and businesses to shut down. This led to a sharp rise in poverty, especially in Indonesia, where the poverty rate jumped from 11% to 24% in just a few months. Because of the currency crash, inflation increased fast. Prices for everyday goods like foods and basic items became unaffordable for many families. This made daily life very difficult. The frustration led to mass protests, especially in Indonesia. People were angry with the government for not handling the crisis well, and this led to major political consequences. So the last one is political impact. In terms of politics, the crisis led to major leadership changes. In Indonesia, the public protests eventually forced President Suharto to resign in 1998 after ruling the country for more than 30 years. This marked the start of a democratic era. In South Korea, the crisis helped bring in President Kim Dae-jung, who introduced reforms to fight corruption and increase transparency in big corporations. In Thailand, pressure from the public also pushed the government to implement constitutional reforms and take greater responsibility. Next, I will talk about how the Asian financial crisis affected global business practices, government functions, and international organizations. The first one is global business practices. The crisis also changed how global business operated in Asia. Multinational companies like Citibank and HSBC became more cautious with their investments. They started checking risk factors more carefully before lending money or entering new markets. Investors also diversified their portfolios. Instead of putting all their money in one region, they spread it out to reduce risk. The crisis also highlighted the need for transparency, so businesses were expected to be more open about their finances. Second, let's move on to the government functions. In Indonesia, after Suharto stepped down, the new government started both political and economic reforms to fix the damage caused by the crisis. In South Korea, the government focused on reforming large companies known as chaebols like Samsung and Hyundai. New rules were introduced to increase transparency and reduce corruptions. These reforms were pushed by public demand and were necessary to rebuild trust in the system. Finally, let's talk about international organizations. During the crisis, the International Monetary Fund gave large loans to countries like Thailand, Indonesia, and South Korea. But these loans came with strict conditions. Countries had to cut public spending, raise taxes, and liberalize their markets. Many people felt that this condition made the situation worse for poor communities. Because of this, the IMF faced a lot of criticism. As a response, countries in Asia created the Chiang Mai Initiative, a regional safety net so they could help each other financially in future crises without relying so much on Western institutions.
Now, for the lesson learned from the crisis is the importance of financial regulation system, which is the impulse on better regulation, which had improved the annual GDP after the financial crisis. As you can see on the graph here, from the 1997, it began to slowly decrease, and then they realized the importance of the financial regulation system. So they figured, yeah, let's fix. And then without the regulation, they realized lending risk and excessive foreign borrowing and big review went unchecked. So it's a flaw in the regulation system. Another lesson learned is the risk of retaining fixed or semi-fixed exchange rate without enough foreign exchange reserve. When the reserves are dry, the currency will begin to devalue and imports becoming expensive and inflation occurs. Therefore, it is important to acknowledge the risk and implement a better flexible exchange rate. Third lesson we can learn is that the vulnerabilities of the international financial system, mainly the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. The IMF's rigid and slow responses have made it vulnerable to financial crises which had occurred in 1997, and it aims to achieve sustainable growth and prosperity for all of its 191 member countries. Last but not least, the lesson learned is the establishment of the financial safety nets due to the Chiang Mai initiative. Without the safety net established, the Asian country will continue to suffer from the speculative attack due to its vulnerability. And then it will stop its over-reliance on the Western financial institution during times of crisis in the future. That's all for me. Thank you.
To conclude, the Asian financial crisis of 1997 served a powerful reminder of how interconnected global financial market truly are. The crisis exposed the risk of unregulated capital flows and over-reliance on the fixed exchange rate system. However, from the crisis come available lessons. Many affected countries took a step to strengthen their macroeconomic foundations, improve the financial regulations, and build large foreign reserve. It also encouraged the greater regional cooperation, such as the Chiang Mai Initiative, which is aimed to prevent similar crises in the future. Most importantly, the crisis helped reshape the global financial structure, pushing the pulse of government and also international institutions like IMF and also World Bank to adopt more flexible and collaborative approach. This exchange made national economy more resilient and better prepared in future challenges. That's all from me. Thank you.